Have you started or have you installed Docker? Please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, I'm pulling up my things yesterday. Okay, okay. Yeah. So let me share my screen here. Yesterday we have talked about you know different commands related to the Docker, meaning how we do deal with the Docker images, especially the Docker image commands, Docker run commands, and how to pass the different parameters to an image while running, while creating a container, especially the port forwarding and volume mounting and the name of the container, and right. So we have tried, other than that, we have tried like how to log in inside a container while it is running. So these are the commands that we have tried yesterday. Meaning, yesterday we have compared. I mean, why I have compared with the VM is because you already know how do you work with the VM, especially how do you create a VM, how to log in a VM, how to fix a VM, and everything, right? So same thing, since you already know about how do you deal with the VM. So I compared the same thing with the Docker image, and similarly, we have done the same part here. Okay. Yesterday we have talked about we stopped about the Docker commit. We just discussed about the Docker commit, and then left. Stopped the class yesterday, the theoretical part. Let's continue from there itself. So what does it mean is, yesterday there is an image again. For example, take as an Nginx image that we do have. From an Nginx image, we have created multiple containers. Okay. Okay. So now you have these multiple container images. So what is, let's say you can't directly change you can't directly, this is an image and these are the containers. Okay. If you want to do some changes in the container can save the changes, but it won't be reflected in the image itself. Meaning, for example, your initially the image size is 180 MB, and you have done some changes in the container. Let's say you have filled up some DB, like you have added some data, or your disk size has increased from 180 MB to 190 MB. So that 190 MB won't reflected in the image itself, since you have done the changes in the container side. Okay, so if you want to save those changes into the image, you have to, after doing some changes in the container, you have to do one more step called Docker commit. So what will happen is, instead of when you do Docker commit, what does it happen is, it will add the same changes in the image level. So it will automatically create another image. This is how you do save the changes which you have done at the container level by doing the commit. So ultimately, you will get another image called image, some other name like latest dot, colon, that colon slash latest. Let me bring up my virtual box here. I'm bringing up my virtual box here. Okay, so what we have is we talked about the volumes, and we will talk about the Docker file and image creation along with the. I mean, when you do Docker file, you would almost compose the things. At 89.82. Okay, these are the command that we do to see the list of images. Now I'm checking if there are any Docker processor running or not. So there are no Docker processor running here. Now let's create a container. Let's start an image. Okay, Docker run. From yesterday's command, we'll use the same thing. So we have used the mounts also here. Okay, so I'm just here. Yeah, it is saying, see, the name of ng volume is already used by a container. So you have to give some other name. 1, 2, 3 we have given. Let's give a 4 here. Okay, just started. Now let's check the Docker process. Okay, now how to log in inside a container? Docker run, Docker exec -it, the volume, this one, and the bash. So you are inside a container here. Okay, now let's hello.txt. I mean, it won't be, none of the editors are present. Test.txt. Let's see, test.txt is present. Now, what we should do is Docker commit the, let's check the processes are running. Docker commit. Now, what I've just done is I have added a container. I created a container from an image, and I have added a file called test.txt with some content. Now, I want to save these changes. So, what I should do is Docker commit the container ID we should give, the container ID or container name. If you are giving a container ID, first 5 digits are enough. Otherwise, you can deal with the container name also. Okay, now I'm giving Docker commit. Now let's check. This is still running. Now let's check Docker images. Here, if you see here, there is a one image got created with the image ID. If you see here, okay, because as I mentioned here, whenever you do commit, another image will be get created with the changes. Likewise, if you start this image, automatically, if you start any of the container from this image, all containers will get a test.txt. Now let's see and then start how to deal with that. Of course, here we have given a what is a repository name and tag. We can give that, but it's fine. We can start another container from this one. Now, this is the command that I have given, right? So here I'm going to change the image name. Image name I don't know. So I mean don't know means we do not have. So I can deal with the image ID here and similar stuff here. Same thing, because it is an Nginx only, it required to pass a port number and volume. So what I'm gonna do is again same, I'm passing in my local in my local volume. There is a DB folder, and the DB folder there is a HTML file. Use read-only purpose for this image, and make sure this image name, I mean this container name should be new Nginx. New Nginx, and port number 9002 is already utilizing. I'll give a 9009, so it won't show you. Now let's check this. Okay, now let's check Docker processes. See this. Okay, if you see this one is a previous container which we have logged in. That was a 3 minutes ago. Now we just launched another container. It was 4 seconds ago. The base image it used is this one. Previous is Nginx. The container ID is, so you can see it now. The container ID is this from this image. This is the container ID of the previous one of this image. Okay. So it is clearly running on this part. Okay. So now let's log in inside this container. Docker exe -it. The container name 84bb bb, okay, and bash. Okay, now let's check. See test.txt is been presented because we have done the changes. Okay, yeah. Any questions on this, guys? Simple thing is, if you want to do some changes in the container and you want to save those changes, you have to use the Docker commit. When you do Docker commit, when you do Docker commit, it will create a new image that with that changes. That is the main thing you have to remember it. Okay. Why? Because Docker is, I mean, the container is a stateless, meaning it does not have a capability of storing by itself. You have to intentionally specify it is a save. That's why we use a Docker commit. Okay. Now the next thing is we'll talk about the Docker network ls here. See, simple. So meaning, so for example, you created a Docker container from an image, or you have an image. When you start an image or when you create a container, what does it happen is there will be a by default one network, that is a bridge network. For example, when we created a virtual box, by default it will be in the bridge network, right, in a VM. Or else, the same example, when you connect it to your home network, I mean your Wi-Fi, it will be a bridge network between, I mean, it is in the bridge network within the home, okay, not to the external world. Another way is NAT network, meaning uh, why I said NAT is it is an internal to your home router. That is one definition of a NAT. A bridge means in the same home you would be connecting, I mean your friends would have connected, your father, mother, I mean everyone would have connected to your home network that is connected to the router. It will assign the IP address in the same network. Okay, that is why I call as a bridge network. You can communicate I mean, your IP, I mean, your devices communicate each other because it's both all are in the same network of a home router. Why I said the NAT is your devices can't able to reach by others. Others means, for example, your neighbor's router. I mean, their devices cannot able to directly communicate with your devices. They'll able to communicate with only one IP, that is a public IP of your home router. So that's why I mentioned it as a home and I mean NAT and bridge network. Similarly, whenever you create a container, it will be start with some network. If you see here, there are some default networks here, bridge and host, and each network will have a driver, okay? And each one will have a network ID. So what you do is, there is a command called Docker network ls. Similarly, Docker network create the network ID, I mean network name, and the driver you have to specify it. Okay. So now let's see some of the existing Docker networks, how it will be looks like. Okay. I want to show how it can be utilized here. See here, you have run a one Nginx with the network adapter name called Docker 0. Docker 0 is a default network which will be there, and this is where it will assign an IP address to you. And this is a bridge network. There is some other thing called Docker nothing. I mean, don't assign any of the network, meaning it won't have any IP address at all. Okay, it will have 127.0.0.1 only. And there is a network type called host. Okay, and you just mention it will be created in the a network called host only. Okay, so these are the network names. And similarly, if you see here, Docker 0, you just need to remember Docker 0 is the default network in this. If you see here, the commands, how they have run it, Docker run Nginx, meaning simple. They did not mention any of the parameter related to the network. So when they done like this, by default, it will attach to the a Docker host network. Internally, it will have a Docker 0, which will maintain or which will assign the IP addresses in the 192.17 series. Okay. Now let's check one by logging into one of the network here. Okay, IP. There is nothing which was being done mentioned here. Okay, or otherwise, why it does not contains IP config or any of the commands? Because this is a very lightweighted one. Okay, now let me find out the IP address inside a Docker. It will be in the series of 172 or something like this. Okay, so there is another command called Docker inspect. I mean, instead of going inside a container, there is another command called Docker inspect, because anyway, we are going to discuss, we got a chance to talk about this, right? Docker inspect, the container name you have to mention. Okay, 84EBB, right? Docker inspect 84EBB. Okay, there is no subject is they are mentioning here. 4BBB. 4BBB. See, Docker inspect has been coming here. Okay, so what does it mean is, it is just given an inspection. I mean, it is giving in the entire configuration related to this container. You can apply Docker inspect to a container, name or image name or network name, anything you can give. Okay. And so I have just given an inspection command to a running container. Okay. This is the one thing. So now if you ask me, there is a lot of information that is related to this particular container. Okay. Now let's try to understand this one. I mean, for better understanding, what I was doing is I'm using some of the JSON editor, which is an online, so you can easily understand what this entire format looks like. JSON editor online. I mean, you can use anything. You can put it in a notepad and then try to understand. But since I'm using this, I was being okay. Now let's do this. Okay, the Docker inspect has given a lot of information. Let's try to understand of those also here. Now let me clear of all drawings. Here there are some information related to your container. This is your container ID. This is where the time it was created. The path docker entry point.sh, which has been their default. When we are creating a Docker file, we'll use some command called docker entry point. Okay. We'll see that. How many arguments they have positioned. They did not provided any arguments for image level, but they have provided another volumes options. Okay, that is fine. Okay, now the state of the container is running. Okay, and it is passed, no, everything. And this is the one when it was started, and this is the image ID it was taken, and these are the place where the Docker containers are storing. Whenever you create a container, right, by default, under where lib docker containers, there is a one particular folder will be get created. That particular folder is nothing but your container ID. Inside a container ID, it will save everything. Okay, and even we can find the Docker logs also here. We will see that. Okay, now let me open this and see the Docker logs also here. I mean, now how many processes are running? Two processes. Now I want to see the logs of this container, meaning what is happening of this container. Now what I do is I am going to the var lib containers docker, what it is, where it is, var lib docker containers. Since I'm not using var lib docker, okay, I have to log in as a sudo. Okay, var lib container, not container, docker containers, and these are all the containers. See, one more best problem, or one of the common problem that we do face is when you work with the Docker is your hard disk will be keep on increasing, because whenever you just create a container, right, it will create all these folders, and each folder contains some value. So like this, whenever you just play around with the containers, lot of junk files, not like junk files, all the previous containers folders would be created. Because of this, your entire hard disk will be filled up with this. So just need to remove, or you just need to remove whatever it is not required. Okay, so now 8 okay, 84b. Okay, so inside of this there are a lot of files called checkpoints, config, lot of stuffs here. Okay, so here, so you would find most of the information under this, all the container related, meaning it can able to talk with this IP address of this container only. Okay, so this is what I want to show here. And this is the home path, this is the log path, And see, the log path is again with the same name here. Under this, under the same folder, this is the log path. See, these are the logs related to your container. If the container is stopped, exited, or it run any command or any errors, you would find all the things under the same path. Where lib docker containers, the container ID, inside a container ID folder, the log file name is also container name hyphen json.log file. So this is the log file you would be finding it out there. And this is the your container name, and by default it has used a driver called overlay network, and the platform is a Linux, and you would find a lot of information here. And if you see here how many policies or how many things has been applied here, so you would find a 1 minute, you would find all the information related to your Nginx container, with including networks also. I'm looking about the network settings. Okay, anyway, we found here, right? The port one, we have exposed the port one. If we have added another ports, right, we'll get a list of those ports here also under the port bindings object in this JSON. Now let me come to another part. Yeah, mounting volumes. Yeah, see, mount volumes that we have configured. So if it will show you, this is the source folder where our db folder is existed, and then inside a container this is a destination, and the mode is read only mode, and read write is been false. Okay, and so, and what are the environment variables you have passed? There are no of the environments I have passed. By default it has been, these are the things. Okay, and here entry point. So I mean, as of now, this is the one. You just need to understand the network settings. This is the main part, and where you find a bridge network, what it is, all the, yeah, this is an IP address. 172.17.0.3 is the main IP address. 170.17.0.1 is the gateway for this container. So this is how it will assign an IP address to you. And if you want to find any of the information related to an image or container, you just need to inspect. Okay, and this is one of the method to understand or to do a reverse engineering of any image. For example, sometimes you may get a task related to reverse engineering of a docker, meaning you would find a image, but you don't get the docker definition file, how they have created it. What you can do is, you can do an inspect of this image and then try to understand what are the, how they have definition, so you can really reconstruct it from a back, from doing the reverse engineering. So you can construct your own docker file from an image if it is someone they have done. So this is also helpful for the reverse engineering of a docker image from image to a file. Okay, so this is the major thing. And now let's talk about the Docker file. Before going the Docker files concept, do you have any questions? I want to confirmation, guys. Is it clear? Is it clear, guys? I want a confirmation. Can someone please confirm me? I don't know whether you are there or not, but just please confirm me. If not, it's fine. I can continue, but you don't need to ask me the questions. Hey guys, are you there? Hey guys, are you
Yes,
there?
Narendra. Yes, Narendra, we can hear you.
Okay, fine, cool. Okay, thanks. Okay, that's fine. Okay, no problem. Please rewatch this video and then ask me questions if you have any. Okay, now let me continue and follow my things here. Okay, now we just completed whatever the scenarios that we have done. Now let's talk about another thing called Docker file. Now, Docker file we are talking about. Why the Docker file? A Docker file is if you remember, there is a something called Docker image, right? Image, what exactly the image? Image is consist from multiple layers. Each layer has its own functionality, and entire image works like a base image itself. Image itself. So underneath, in the same definition, you just need to add one more line called an image is a Docker file. Docker file consists of an instructions of each layer, and each layer will work as it works like a exactly image. Now we are talking about this Docker file. Okay, since in the Docker file, the file name you should be using this way, Docker file. This is it. You should be giving a Docker file name. No sir, I will give Naren Docker file. Yes, you can give, but if you give a Docker file, you would use a command called docker build dot. But if you give a custom file name docker build hyphen f Naren Docker file, you have to give something. You have to specify the file name. But there are some more advantages other than this also. We will discuss it now. Okay. Now let's see what is a Docker file here. When you do save something with the Docker file, it consists of some image. These are commands and instructions. This is a basic syntax of it. Like this, you will have a multiple commands inside a file and something like this. Commands and instructions. Okay, this is how the basic syntax of a Docker file. Now let's put it in the reality. Docker file. Now what I do is I'll open another file. I'm saving it. Docker file here. This is the Docker file. First keyword is from. These are the Docker file keywords or commands, you could say. From Ubuntu. If I have any specific versions of Ubuntu I want to use, you can mention those also, or you can put a latest. In case of a latest, you don't need to specify anything. Next thing is CMD. Whenever you start this Ubuntu, just display who am I. Okay. Now another thing is called CMD, means a command. Another thing is just create a file called intro.txt. So this is my Docker file definition. Okay. Now we just learned about the from keyword and CMD here. Okay. So now let's build and then try to see here. Okay. And there are a lot of commands also, but just still we would be going with the basic one here. See, even you can go to the any of the documentation which is available. If you see here, these are the commands here. Okay, you can find it. See, these guys have done this. This is the one, and finally you save it. This is how they would be doing it. Now let's do the same thing here. Oh, I have saved all the information under this. Now I'll miss saving this information. Instead of my Windows machine, I need to save it in the Docker mkdir d files. Under this only I'm gonna create everything. Now Docker file, and I'm pasting this here. Okay, so Docker build hyphen t. Name is the syntax is name and the Docker file they just mention here. So the best practice is this way, but generally what they do is Docker file, for example, Naren is my Nginx, Naren image, and the tag is 0.0.1. So just give a dot. Invalid tag called repository name. It should be in the lower case. See here. So what does it happen is, if you see here, Docker image. If you see here, there is an image got built up. Okay. So this is how we do create an image from a Docker file. Now let's recap of what we have just done here. We have a Docker definition, Docker file definition. The first one is a from keyword. From is nothing but, okay, now you are going to create an image, right? This is your image called Naren Nginx. And from where I should take an image, meaning you have used the from keyword as Ubuntu. There is an image called Ubuntu which has everything related to Ubuntu, Linux, all the command and everything. Okay. Now, when you say from Ubuntu, what does it do is it will take the same Ubuntu image to your local machine, and then it will add two more layers on top of this. So when you take the same image like this, it contains everything, right? Now, since you added two lines of instructions to your Docker file, what does it do is it will extend Ubuntu image with the two more lines like this. And finally, this is another Docker image called Naren Nginx. So this is what just you have done. Two more instructions you have given. So this is a Nginx, I mean Naren Nginx image. Okay. Likewise, each command or each line inside your Docker file is an instructions, and each command or each line is a layer of an image. Image is basically a multiple layers. If you remembered, while pulling an Nginx image or any of the image, we have seen it downloading something and a lot of stuff it has been happening. If you remember, yesterday we have done something like Docker pull. It has shown me downloading and multiple layers, right? Each one is a one layer, meaning each one is a instruction within inside a Docker container. For example, if your Docker image contains a 10 layers, whenever they are pulling your image, it will download those things in a 10 layers format. The reason is behind of this one. It will have a multiple instructions in this. Okay. Now let's understand what is the from keyword. From keyword means, as I told you, right, in order to create your own image, you should have some base image. Okay. You are inheriting, right? You required something. So that is where you have taken a from. Ubuntu means take as a Ubuntu image, then add on top of Ubuntu of this following. So that is what is just happened. Sir, can I use without from? Yes, you can use, but you have to create your own OS. You can't do that. It's very difficult. You just use the purpose. I mean, you just use the base image from by someone like this, and then on top of that, you build on your own thing. In a real time, everyone will also use the some base image. Meaning, for example, if your task is related to the Ubuntu, you should have some OS. Otherwise, if you are working on a Java or Maven project, there are some images already built with the Java and Maven. For example, OpenJDK. This is the image which is already been available. You just use it and then add instructions like this. Okay. So the best thing is you just need to understand of all these images. Why did they have given? They can mention Ubuntu, or they can give OpenJDK or anything. So like this, they can provide any of the base image in their Docker file. Okay. And the next one is a CMD. There are some keywords that now we need to know. We'll talk about in a moment. CMD, right? CMD is nothing but a command. What will just do is it will just execute who am I. Who am I is a Linux command. Whenever you just created a OpenJDK image while creating it, just execute this command called who am I. Then execute another command called echo hello and intro.txt, meaning this command is just creating a file inside a Linux box. So these commands you would be executing at the time of creation of a image itself. Let's see the example here. See, it is building it here. Okay, everything was been. Actually, it is not showing those logs here, but generally, if you see here, whenever it is doing, the first one is this one from image, and then it is executing others also. But since it was a at the time of running it did not show in this one, but some other OSs, right, it will show you the underneath logs also. But fine, we will see you other commands also. But CMD is another, I mean, not CMD, what is that? Run here. When let me put it this. Run. This is run. Now let's rebuild it. See, run, who am I? Run, who am I? It is just run these three layers because all contains a three layers. First one is a from, it is downloading the Ubuntu image. Second layer is a who am I, to run a who am I command. Third layer is echo hello.index. Finally, it is exporting an image as an layers. This is the one. Okay. Finally, these are the, this is how it will be build an image. Okay. Now let's understand how different Docker files is consist of here. Oh no. First, before that, I want to make you understand this command. The command to build it. You would use a command called Docker build -t means tagging your image name. See, the best thing is you have to tag. You should be well versed with the Docker tag. Okay, Docker build -t meaning, hey, please tag the image that you are going to create with this name. Naren image colon latest, meaning the image that is going to create, please tag this. And space dot dot. If you see here, dot is very representative. When you say dot means in the current directory, there is a file called Docker file. You use that for to build it. If you don't have, what you should do is if you have it some other file name -f Docker file name, you should be giving something like this. After that, you don't need to give a dot because you are specifying where the Docker file and which is the Docker file. If your Docker file is with the Docker file name itself, you just need to space and dot. That's it. Okay, this is what we have just given here. And okay, so now let me clear off all this. Okay, this is what it has been happen here. Okay, when you do execute call docker build, and it is showing you all the building process what is happening here. Now let's try to understand some more Docker images here. Okay, see this guys. Yeah, these are the some of the Docker commands here. You have to remember this. Okay, so in our Docker definition file, we just use the from, run, and CMD. These are only the three keywords that we just seen in the Docker files. There are some other things called add. What does it do is it will copy the files from a source on the host to container. CMD, it can be execute the another keyword called CMD. It will execute the command whatever it has been required. For example, as we mentioned, echo, mkdir, cat, anything you can be an apply. And the next one is an entry point. Entry point is nothing but you just started a, you once you image is once your image's creation is done, what you do, you will start an image. When you start an image, what will happen? A container will be get created. Okay, so whenever you just start whenever the container is started, if you want to execute a specific command, you would use a keyword called entry point. Entry point means whenever the container got created, just execute this. Meaning, let me put it this way. Okay, now whenever image got started, meaning container got something, if I put something like this, it will just print an image called echo welcome to Docker file. This is the command you can just print on entry of the particular container, or entry point java -jar application.jar. So it will automatically start an application. This is where real use of a entry point here. Whenever you start a container, automatically start a web application or start a jar. Or some people would be using some like Docker D. Of course, internally it won't use it. So you just, systemctl, of course, it does not have anything. Systemctl status SSHD. If you want to check any service, or if you want to start SSHD. So something like this. This is where you would be using an entry point. Sets the default application to be used every time container is created. Meaning, whenever you start a container, whatever the command which is associated with that entry point command, it will execute it. That's it. Okay. Generally, they would be using entry point for starting an application. Okay. Next one is env sets. Env means, for example, where is this thing? Okay, yesterday we have provided two environment variables here, -p and -volume. If your Docker image wants to run any of these things, they will tell you like env. They required, for example, they want to provide a name, env code, something like this. You can mention all this information with the env thing. Another thing is expose. Expose in another command, it will tell you what port need to be exposed. You are saying whenever you create this Docker image, if you use command called export, you have to specify 8080. By default, whenever your image got created, by using that image, if you are starting a container, whenever this container start, automatically it will expose the 8080 port. Yesterday we remember, right? Yesterday we have given a hyphen port number. In the Docker definition of Nginx, they have mentioned something like this: expose 80. Then only we were able to use a 80 while running a container. Why? Because the Docker definition has a keyword called export of 80. Okay, similarly, that is the main purpose of the Docker expose. To start the build process, meaning basically you should use some base image in order to start your Docker image. You have to use it. And one more thing is, sir, can I start a Docker file without a from keyword? Yes, you can start, but it is very difficult. No one would have used, because if you want to build, it's like you are creating your own OS for your work. That's kind of thing. We don't require such kind of requirements, right? Similarly, the same thing. Okay, but the blender thing is, your Docker file should start with the doc from. That is the main thing. Okay, next, another one is a maintainer keyword. What does it do is, it will just tell you who is a maintainer of this Docker file. It is just a description about your Docker file and who has done what is that and everything. And next one is a run command. What does it happen is, when you use a run command, what will happen is, it will run the commands at the creation of a Docker image. The difference of the command is also to run a command, but When you start a container, it will execute these commands. Run means it will execute the commands at the time of creation of a Docker image. There are two processes, if you ask me. First thing is here, first thing is you create a Docker file and then you build it and then you run it, right? So in this process, you would use a CMD, run commands. Run commands will work in the at the time of building stage. CMD commands will work at the time of running a content. Okay, this is the main difference of a run and CMD keywords. Another one is user keyword. So whenever, for example, in the same Docker definition file, generally, if we want to run a systemctl, we should use a command, we should use a sudo, right? Without sudo, it won't execute properly. So at that time, what you do is user Narendra, then systemctl command would be executed as a Narendra user. Or if you mention like sudo or su, it will execute that with the sudo command. That is the purpose of a users command. And next one is a volume. Okay. And volume is also similarly like another all other keywords. What does it do is you have to specify, please mount my current directory volume to home of Ubuntu of a container. I mean, we don't have Ubuntu such this, but where lib. So by default, it will use dot means current directory. Wherever the Docker file present in the same directory, use that as a mount point to this path. If you save something inside this container, it will ultimately save in the local of this directory. Okay. So this is the meaning out of it. And next one is a working directory. Working directory is another command where you do use in order to switch between the commands, switch between the different works. Okay, in the real time is what we do is we will navigate to the different application paths, like from home Ubuntu to downloads or where lib or some other directory. Okay, another one is a label. So it's basically labeling your Docker image, which is like a tagging your things. See, they have given the same thing. They have created a Docker file and they mentioned all these, and they have used Ubuntu latest image. They have given their own name and directly run apt update and apt upgrade, and finally update build essentials. Finally, this is what they have done, and this is what just been they have created here. Okay, so this is the steps they have done it here. See, they with the same name they have created a three images. One is a app dev, another one is a web dev, another one is a security dev purposes. So like this they have created. Now let's even use the same thing. We already have a Docker file, right? So what we do is let's create or remove the same file and then use our commands now. Okay, the same thing. From image, maintainer is Narendra and email ID is this one, and apt update, install build essentials, and all the stuff. Something like this, same command lock builder, and this is as they have given web dev 01 this one. So it is creating a layers run. It is executing the second instruction in our Docker file definition. Okay, so it is downloading all the stuff related to this command. Okay, run. Okay. Even it would take time to update and upgrade also, but fine. See, because it is taking a time, so I don't use of that part. So here what I do is instead of update and all, I'll just skip. I mean, whatever thing we can give, but it is taking a time. But this is a process, guys. We can continue. My network speed is slow. That's why I stopped it, because it has to update and everything here. And the next one is, now let's try to understand some existing Docker files. Docker files, GitHub. So we can find some of the open source projects and then see how they have built their own Docker files. Okay. Okay, let's give this guy Komal Jan. Yeah, see this, there is in the source code there they have saved with the Docker file. See here, they have used the from of a Python. They are using a Python image. Why? Because their project might be dependent with the Python related. Okay. env, whenever you are running their image, it required to pass this environment variable called Python buffered. Then they used a command called run. What does it doing is, it is just updating it. It is updating the Postgres client, and it is removing the existing temporary directories. These are the commands it wasn't executing at the time of image creation itself. And the next one is that they have used called work directory, meaning it will just cd to this slash app directory. And the third one is called copy. What does it do is, it will copy the files from local machine. Wherever, for example, you are running a Docker file in this path, right? If you mention something copy in this directory, there should be file or folders called pipelines. Then it will copy all the things, either it is a file or directory. They have mentioned the star here. Star means anything. It is a file or directory, it will just copy inside a app folder which is within the image itself. And next command is they are running pip. Pip is another command tool related to the Python. So they're just installing all the pip related libraries. And the next one is they are also pointing docker entry point.sh, meaning they are copying this file into this one. What does exactly means? Docker entry point has a two meanings. I mean, one is it's copying here, and the second one is, this is where whenever the container started, it will we mentioned, right, entry point. That entry point is just nothing but entering inside a, whenever it is entering inside a container, it will execute the commands whatever it has been mentioned here. Now let's see what is they have written here under the Docker compose. Sorry, under the Docker entry point. See, they are executing entire shell script, but not a single command. With the help of entry point, we'll execute only one command. But what they have done is, they created a shell script, and then they are putting that as an entry point. So whenever container started, automatically it will execute all this information. Okay, this is how the people are also doing it. Okay, not doing it. This is the best way of doing it, because if we have a multiple instructions to execute when the container started. Okay, now the real-time use cases, for example, once image got created or once you start a container, you have to delete all the world related libraries of the PSSQL, I mean PostgreSQL. This is one real-time use case. Or if once you container got created, you have to delete all the temporary files, or you have to create some text files, or you have to create some basic environment variables before you are running an application. So these are all the real-time use cases. Okay, now next one is, once this is done, it is giving a permission of an execution of this one to execute it. Okay, so ultimately copying the entire thing inside a app folder. And next one is the cmd. This is the last command in this Docker file. That is a, whenever you just execute it, or whenever you start a container, use this command called sh space execute this file. Automatically it will execute it. Okay, so this is how they have built their own Docker image. I mean, Docker files. What they do is once this is everything is done, they'll just do Docker build space -t, their image name space dot. That's it. That's it. They would be doing it here. Now let's check another. Any questions, guys, before going forward? Because you have to read some of the existing this stuff, then only you should be able to understand properly. Otherwise, you will be in a confusion state. But please go through different Docker images. Now I'm opening another one. These guys have done something. So let's go to the Docker. Yeah, here is the Docker file. See, they have these many instructions from command. This is the one of the base image they are using. Environment variables they required. Working directory is this. Shell, it has been using a bash shell. They don't use a TS shell, K shell or anything. They are specifically telling use a shell called bash only. Don't use any other shell. That is the main intention of this. And it is required an arguments called a dbane front end. So then they are executing apt commands using a run keyword, and again they are executing another keyword, run with the help. So like this, they are doing all the stuff here. Okay, so this is another one, and let's see another Docker file here. Plates. Yeah, where is the Docker file? But fine, let's go this. See, they have mentioned, as I mentioned, right? You don't need to save the Docker file with the Docker file only. You can do anything with the other thing. But only the thing is you have to specify which file name when you are building. Now let's see the example of this guy. So what they are doing, they are using a Golang of this version as a image, base image. See, here they are mentioned as a builder, because they are giving a variable called builder to this. Wherever they want to represent, they'll use represent this as a builder. Okay, next keyword is work directory. It will go to the directory of this path, and then it will copy the entire thing inside something in the current directory to inside a container of this path, and then it is executing these commands also. These are all related to the Go language. Okay, Go language. It is something to do with their project. See, they are building their own Go language project. If you remember, we have worked on the Maven project, and we can mention Maven related commands like this. This is how they would run their Go language project, and they are creating another image. See, they are creating a builder image and another image from the same image file itself. Okay, they are creating two things. Okay, see here we will see how these two are interrelated also here. Okay, another one is from Alpine and label as maintainer, owner as these guys, and they are using a run keyword to run this particular and run another keyword, and they're finally they are copying from builder. If you see here, from builder means of this image of this directory to this one. Use this from this builder image, meaning previous image, meaning whatever the content inside of this, inside of a builder image, copy to under this project. Finally, they are executing this project. That's it. So, I mean, it is like a working with the multiple Docker files in the same Docker file itself. But fine, but you have to just go through this only keywords. What are the keywords they have used and what is the purpose? Okay, this is main thing, guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share this you guys, so you just try to understand what these guys are doing. Yeah, this is all about the Docker files. Please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, any questions, guys? Have you understand? Please go through this, and let's come back to the next class, and then see if you have any questions. But I would request you, these things won't be understand without doing a practice. You have to practice, you will run into issues, and then you try to resolve the issues, then you will remember all the topics how that works. Because in an interview aspect, people would be keep on asking you the differences between the different commands, and the commands that what are the things you will be using in a Docker file, and how to build a Docker file also here. Okay, now let's talk about, not now, in the next class we will be talking about next concepts of the Docker, especially the Docker compose and all the stuff. And after Docker compose, we will be dockerizing an application also, meaning we will take the maven project and then generate a jar, and then we will copy the jar inside to the Docker container and then publish the Docker image. Okay, and maximum another 2 classes we will be completing the Docker again. So just practice and then come to me if you have any questions over the weekend. Okay guys, yeah, that's it from my side today. Let's meet the next class.